I will make a quick intro of Katarina. So, well, I welcome everyone to this workshop, and we will cover today the topic of fundraising. And Katarina is one of our Kickstart advisors, but mainly also a fellow entrepreneur and the co-founder of Pepicon. And she will share today actionable tips on fundraising and give you a quick tour of their software, which has helped companies in raising successful rounds of about 100K to 4 million euros in a matter of weeks. So this is Katarina, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Regina. Well, first of all, a big warm welcome to everybody. And thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Katka, Regina, and the whole Kickstart team. As Regina mentioned, let me see if my slides are working now. Oh, here we go. Nice to meet you all. I know I've been in touch with a few of you already, but just very briefly, because I believe we can connect afterwards, or you can go check my LinkedIn for more details. But the few main facts, as Regina mentioned, I'm the co-founder of Pepicon, a fundraising digital solution that we're going to peek into later, but also my passion lies in business development, business growth, and that's why I'm also one of the advisors with Kickstart and supporting other organizations as well. My passion's really looking at strategic collaborative approach to business growth and working rather smart than hard only. And so we'll be definitely happy to then connect after the workshop. Today, what is in front of us? Oh my God, now I completely closed the... I'm gonna ask you maybe, Regina, also to help me monitor the chat, just to close it for now. So what we have in front of us for the next 55 minutes is, of course, just quickly housekeeping, looking into the current reality. Very important to understand what are the trends impacting fundraising. And then we're going to dive into the 9 fundraising tips, linked to, of course, what you should not do and what you should do. And then quickly give you a tour through our solution, and of course, then allow a bit of space for Q&A. Here, let's let them move. So I would just like this, even though it's a short session, to be as interactive as possible. So please use the chat, or just, because we are not that huge of a group, just enable your microphone to ask any question. But of course, when you're not speaking, please just mute yourself. But jumping of a question in at that specific moment when it pops up is absolutely okay. And I'm happy to share all the slides afterwards, so no need to focus on taking notes, but just really lean back, enjoy. In some countries, including Switzerland, it's already wine or beer o'clock, so feel free to get a drink. And as I mentioned, the Q&A or even follow-ups afterwards are not a problem whatsoever. So let's dive in. I think the first question, before diving completely into the reality, I just wanted to check who from the companies that are joining today have some kind of fundraising experience, who has raised a round already or is preparing for a round. I don't know if you just can use just the chat quickly. If you raised, was it a pre-seed, seed, series A? When was that? How experienced are you with fundraising? Are you preparing for your first round? Have you accomplished? Are you struggling with a current fundraise? Okay, Rene has a pre-seed in progress of another one. Not experienced, first round in prep, pre-seed in Q1. Amazing. There's somebody done. They were successful. Perfect. So it seems like mostly as an investor, and wonderful. So it seems like you do have, so some of it, some of the realities, be interesting to see which one you have experienced yourself. And of course, those who are new to this topic, of course, hopefully we'll bring some more insights there. So of course, when speaking about fundraising, it's also important to think about the investor's reality first. Because the investors' reality is, of course, that they're over-flooded by pitch decks from different companies, and the pitch decks are usually coming in a quite messy format. They have all different shapes and formats. 99%, unfortunately, of them are a no-go, which means they're not very complete. And the pitch deck mania results also in no investor can decide if to make an investment in a company based on purely just a pitch deck. It's usually the door opener. And of course, still we're looking at very poor odds and high stakes for the investor, as there's a lot of resources needed from the investor to put into the screening, and only a very small percentage they decide to invest in. So the problem that investors face is, of course, also your problem, as the process for the investor is very long, expensive, and uncertain, because only very small percentage actually they decide if at all. On your side, on the venture side, I think it's no secret that there's a significant time and focus, and also money drain going into fundraising. It's up to 50% of the senior management team that is usually dedicated to the fundraising efforts. It's the investor list is usually very poor. There is not much of a hit list ready, and companies don't know, okay, where do I even start looking for investors? How do I approach them? What do they want? What do they need from me to make a decision? So the whole fundraising management is done in a very inefficient, manual way. And of course, the big difference between the investor and the business side, the company or startup scale-up side, is that for many companies, fundraise or access to external financing is a lot of the times matter of life and death. So for investors, they just move to the next set of pitch decks to look for the investment opportunity. But for the company, it's a matter for their survival, not only growth. And of course, there is currently no best practice, no common standard. And we are looking at the reality where the companies face a lot of uncertainty, because of course, through the email ping pong, when they send pitch decks left, right, and center, there is resulting in a lot of resource waste. And of course, that also results in frustration. So when we're looking at those kind of two groups together, you can see there is quite a disconnect, and the market is not that functioning. I think every pictures are sometimes explaining everything much more simpler and better terms. So it's trying to put a square peg through a round hole. Other important trends, very, very brief. I'm not going to go into the big detail. I would focus on the orange kind of highlighted boxes. We're really looking at a massive raise in the private company investing. Listing companies are not that appealing only in isolation, because the SME and private market is on the rise. And as companies also are deciding to not list or list much later. And then we're looking at really a fierce competition. So for you as a company, you need to take into consideration that you're not pitching alone, that you're pitching, and you really need to consider that you're in competition for the money of investors. And that again highlights that there is no common standard that these two groups, investors and companies, can use to communicate with each other. So enough of theory to just bring you a little bit of information on the realities, but I would like you to use the chat to give me an estimate. And for those who raised, you can also say how long it took for you. How long do you think it takes to raise a seed, for example, a seed round? Approximately in months, 6 months, 3 to 6 months. 12 to 18 months, 3 to 6, 6, 9, 9, 9. It's like the pregnancy, 9. Any other tips? Okay. So looking into the research, actually, again, my thing doesn't work here. You could raise a seed round in a month. This is the official statement. The but coming is that, of course, an experienced team that is fundable, that has a fundable ready proposal and has the readiness to raise, can do that in just 1 month. But as most of you indicated, the reality is much, much longer. So it takes up to 12 months for a seed round to be raised, if at all. Of course, if there's a lot of companies that don't make it and unfortunately even go bankrupt. And one company even summarized and did the count, and it really it just shows how much manual and process hassle it takes, hundreds of calls, emails, and endless meetings trying to close just a seed round deal. So of course, what we're going to be looking at next is the key 9 fundraising tips to move you from the 12 months towards more closer towards the month. And then we're also going to look into our solution. So I have seen some question on the different type of investors. I'm definitely going to be talking about it a little bit, and of course, happy again to follow up afterwards. So first tip, as anything, everything starts a bit with the mindset. Unfortunately, a lot of companies still see fundraising as a necessary evil. This was literally the words mentioned by one company. Or they see it as a one-off activity. They believe we raise just this one round and then we're going to create a snowball effect and we will not ever need external financing again, which is never the case. So I would really invite you to switch the mindset to seeing fundraising as an absolutely essential part of your business strategy, to have a designated person and to really work and put resources into building a fundraising roadmap. You need to understand that once your one fundraising campaign has ended, that's at the same day is the first day of your next fundraising campaign. So we're going to be looking more into that as we go. Second mistake, a lot of companies are very reactive in regards to fundraising, and they choose kind of to freestyle. They realize they need money way too late. They kind of need it yesterday. When they come to investors and they ask them, okay, how much money do you need? They say, well, as much as possible, as much as you can give us. So there is not much strategy plan nor detail towards how much money and for what are you going to be using that. So they also being more freestyle and being more reactive means that you don't have your investors lined up already, or you don't even know who to speak with. So usually companies oftentimes think, oh, I have had an investor contact, an email maybe a year ago, let me look for it. And of course, by that time, it's again looking for something that maybe even Google has deleted already in your mailbox. So it's switching to making sure you're investable at all times, having a sound fundraising roadmap. So being investable at all times, what does it mean? It means you have your basic fundraising information and company information polished and updated all the times. Why is that important? Nowadays, more and more VCs and other investment teams, funds, or individuals also scout companies. So it's not only that companies pitch to them, but they go and ask companies, oh, you're interesting, can we invest in you? Even if you're not looking for investors. There's companies that are approached to become for various M&A deals. And again, if you don't have the readiness and if you don't have your material polished and ready, you're very disadvantaged into taking up on those opportunities coming your way. So as mentioned, your next funding round and liquidity event starts the same day you closed your round. And again, I can't stress out more that the continuous ability to raise funds, exit or trades mean higher liquidity for the investors, which of course increases automatically your valuation, which is appealing for every investor you're speaking with. Third kind of pitfall or mistake, their company has a very poor investor list, not doing their homework in regards to investor prospecting, and or just relying on just a few. So that is a very common one. I think you have heard about fintechs pitching to medtech investors, which doesn't make any investor happy if you don't do that kind of homework. But also they rely on just a few. A lot of the times investors says, oh, interesting, send me more information. or their companies rely on verbal commitments and gentlemen's agreements that oftentimes fall through. And because they don't have a hit list of investors ready, that results in no plan B, and then kind of big delays in their fundraising, or even not being able to fundraise at all. So it's really encouraging you to think strategically, which investors do you actually want? Who do you want to have on your cap table? Creating this hit list of strategic investors that are going to bring value to your company in the short and long term, and also saying no thanks if there is no fit. So not just taking anybody with the money, but asking yourself, can I cope with disappointed, demanding investors, formalities and reporting that comes with having certain investors on our cap table, all the legal paperwork, different agendas, and mainly giving up power, freedom, and flexibility. So this goes to thinking, who do you want on your cap table, and thinking within your team also, do you want somebody who's actively or passively more passive? Do you want to give away influence? What are the veto rights? Do you want somebody to rather have a backseat? Do you want the main experts versus generalists who have potentially greater outreach? Or do you want access to a portfolio of investors, or rather single investors? And of course, then it's to creating that investor hit list, where you have usually a combination of VCs, angels, investment funds, family offices. Mainly in Switzerland, family offices are, of course, a big target, or looking into private individuals. Definitely also great to do the double check on the investment horizon, and what is the different requirement on the expected rate of return between those investors that you have on your list. Okay, fourth mistake, sending out incomplete investment proposals or pitch decks to investors. I think this comes from two key reasons. First of all, companies, again, don't do the homework, and they just do something very quickly and forget to include important information on current traction, how did they validate their idea, and so on, or their financials and so on. So it's missing key information. Or it's also because a lot of companies don't have a massively strong business side in-house. They just simply don't know what the investors are looking for, or what do they need to make their investment proposal complete. So looking, what you should do instead is, of course, try to present a very professional investment proposal, which is complete with all the information that to the investors, so that you get to, as soon as possible, to affirm yes or no. I have to stress out again that getting a no, as much as it can hurt, is much better than getting an interested or a maybe, because this results in just stalled conversations. So it's really thinking of creating a killer pitch deck, having all the due diligence checklist and all the documents ready, the investment memorandum ready, making it really easy for investors to find information they want and make a decision, building excitement before the round opens, provoking sense of urgency, fear of missing out, because you need to understand, if you present a complete professional pitch deck, the investors automatically think, oh, wow, they're ready. Who else is looking at this? And they're naturally more forced to giving you this firm yes or no, rather than just looking at it and seeing, okay, they're anyways not gonna raise just that fast. I can still think about it. So you put really much more urgency in and strengthen your negotiation position. Okay, number 5, as just mentioned, you can fall victim to stretched out negotiations or focusing on the wrong investors. Again, I believe anybody who says interesting from the investor side it doesn't give you any much. And there's a lot of investors where they never intend to invest, but they kind of like to have a coffee or a conversation or a lunch. So it's a lot of companies with the email ping pong of sending out pitch decks. It's tricky to understand, did they open it? Did they read it? Did they share it with somebody? Did they discuss it internally within their angel club? So there is very limited opportunities to qualify in true interest of investors and understand where to focus because you can only nurture a handful of investors in the end. So the fifth tip is really to track who is hot and who is not that interested or interesting for you, focusing on the right investors to close the deal. Again, there's limited time we all have, so this finding that focus and creating this short list of conversations with investors you have is really key. Number 6, we're looking at coming to investors and shareholders only when you need more cash. I think it's logical. Nobody likes to be treated just as a bank, and usually the reality is reversed, that when you come for advice or feedback, you get investors, you get the money follows, but it never happens the other way around. So I would really encourage you to ask investors for their feedback, probe their interest, rather than asking, can you invest? To ask them, look, review our investment memorandum or our pitch deck. How interesting, how appealing is it? What is it missing? What would it make it more interesting? And also double checking on your valuation. A lot of company leaders, of course, are very positive about the valuation. They usually put a generous number there. What we try to do with our tool, which we're going to see later on, is to look at how you can work with valuation range, rather than to have one number that can be perceived scary, to also maybe work with range, which can be done also in a manual or offline format, to really, rather than burning the bridges with a big number, working with a range, probe interest, get feedback on your proposal, on your company proposal, and then really focus also on nurturing strong relationships. As anything in life, in business, also fundraising is about relationship building. So it's not only about the active fundraising campaign management, but it's also, what do you do before you start fundraising? So this 7th issue is that a lot of, there's still too much resource weight in fundraising inefficiencies and manual processes. When speaking with companies, the more advanced one have at least an Excel spreadsheet for their investors or their fundraising project plan or a fundraising campaign. Some do manage their investors in a more interactive CRM solution. So it's really looking at, we're living in the 21st century with a lot of cool tools and solutions out there. So to really, instead of being victim of this waste, looking to save time and money by automating your fundraising process and the investor relations management part. Number 8, there's very little, zero almost, pre-fundraise warming up and excitement building on the investor side, and that continues after the fundraise into post-transaction engagement. So a lot of investors, when interviewing those, mentioned that they're left in the dark. Once they transfer the cash, suddenly the company disconnects, disappears. So of course, this is again not that beneficial if you're planning to come to them for more money later on. So again, it's really thinking about fundraising as the whole cycle, not only as the fundraise per se, but also what is important to build that excitement and build the fear of missing out. So when you're opening your funding round for subscriptions, for investment, you have lined up excited, nurtured, and kind of loyal investors prepared to invest on your side, getting closer to that fundraise in 1 month rather than 12 months. So it's really being very active in pre and post round stakeholder engagement, entertainment, and excitement. So, and again, doing that, I would suggest in a more digital way. And then the last one is, of course, once the fundraise is done, suddenly the fundraising roadmap or strategy is abandoned and kind of forgotten. So I think the last logical tip is to really make it a habit to continuously review the fundraising roadmap with the dedicated person and make it part of your growth strategy, as mainly if you're a tech company, if you're a company looking to scale, if internationally or across product line, it's dependency on external financing is there. And of course, having that readiness is crucial, not only to stand out, but to get that speed to market and achieve that growth. So as mentioned, just to conclude the 9 tips, it's really, I would encourage you to not look at fundraising as the fundraising campaign only, but really consider the full fundraising cycle where it's continuous movement between the being investment ready towards actively running successful fundraising campaigns, towards engaging and empowering your stakeholders continuously. So I'm gonna just pause here, check the chat. Any questions? I just see in the chat are there a list of family offices for Switzerland? Of course, there's many lists out there, actually too long of a list. So again, I would suggest looking for those specifically focusing on your industry or stage. This information is usually very easily accessible, rather than to pitch to them as at mass. So I would do, again, a little bit more research on, depending on your industry and stage, which family office would be the right for you. Good. If there are no questions, let me just then switch my screen. How can I do that? Here we go. I've already been logged out, and I'm going to switch to log into our demo account. Regina, do you see my screen? I'm just gonna.
Yes, I see your profile demo.
Okay, wonderful. Perfect. Okay, so quickly about our tool. So as mentioned, Pepicon is a digital fundraising and investor relations management tool. We are a Swedish company, currently having over 150 companies using our software. We have, it's exciting to see companies raising, as Regina mentioned, between 100,000 rounds towards 4 million was so far the biggest fundraise, 4 million euros done through our platform. And of course, now we have actually first clients that are raising larger second rounds, which is of course always an exciting moment. We're going to look into the company page and then mainly spend some time on the back office to see all the tracking of investor activity, and then give you a peek into the investor side, because I believe that's also, that might be of interest. If you have any questions as I go, again, please feel free just to unmute and jump in. But here, where we're gonna start is, I just need to close this little thingy, is the company page. So once a company creates a profile in Pepicon, of course, the first step is to create the professional pitch in Pepicon, where at the very top, of course, is the important area where the information about the funding round is displayed. If there is a funding round currently open, what are the closing or open dates, what's the target that the company is raising, what's the pre-money valuation, what's the minimum ticket size, and so on. Also, as we're offering companies to offer convertibles or convertible loans or shares, or even a custom element for M&A deals. Then we also give the investors that are invited to review their pitch in Pepicon, they get automatically an option to take action, of course, to invest, but also to give you feedback, send you a message, or to share your proposal, your pitch with another fellow investor, but you still are in control. You need to approve it, and you have the visibility of where does your proposal land in the end. So on the content side, at the very top, we have so-called investor highlights. So it's kind of the top up to 5 key elements that you don't want the investors to miss. This is where the pitch deck usually sits, This is where you also can introduce your team or your product in a form of video. You can plug in any kind of report in your personal data room, the file vault down here. You can also connect any specific section from your investment memorandum that you want to highlight, or add any kind of third-party tool, link, or any document. Below, you can see under profile, this is really the basic information. So investors mentioned they wanted a fast way to identify, is this really for me? So if I see, okay, I'm investing only into tech companies in growth phase in Sweden, I know, okay, this is matches my basic investment preferences. I want to read on. What we also do for the investor side is once they fill in their investment preferences, we combine your funding round information and the overview information in the blue area, and we calculate a matching score, which is displayed both to you as a company, but also to the investor, for allowing you to, again, get in more intel on the qualification, how well you match with them, because of course, if you match, let's say 75 up, you know, you should focus on those investors as a priority. You have a chance to use the editor to add any information more in the about section, but of course, the depth of information sits in the investment memorandum. This is, I actually gonna increase this a little bit. The investment memorandum has a fixed structure. The reason is very logical, so that investors can navigate and find information used to one standard structure. Because as you know, a lot of investors start with reviewing the team and the organization. Some directly go into looking into the financial statements. So we allow flexibility for the investor to simply pick and choose and find the information they need or they're looking for with priority. And still on the company side, as you can see, you can also easily not only see which information still needs to be completed, we offer you also with an inbuilt guide so that you know, okay, what goes into which section. And then, because we believe there's no one size fits all, you can, if you decide, okay, this section is just not relevant for us, maybe not now and not applicable for the company, you can simply exclude it, but still communicate why you're excluding this section so that you give the investor a full 360 view. What we also offer on the memorandum side, as you can see here, is to edit permission. We have quite a lot of access right granularity. We have clients that actually just lock specific memorandum sections to a specific roles just to make it visible to their VIPs, or even decide they want to put a digitally signed NDA in place before the investor can access that section. So all is kind of plugged into one place. Of course, anything that is not covered in the memorandum, the rest of the documents or the due diligence checklist that some investors send you to comply, you can simply upload any documents into the file vault. This is your own data room. Of course, some clients prefer to use an outsourced solution. Some companies actually upload up to 100. We had a winner of the file vault user of the month uploading 100 documents into their file vault. So it just has the flexibility to not only upload the information in, but also to see in the activity log, okay, how are my invited contacts and investors interacting with those documents. And then for the nurturing part, of course, you can go and work in the news area. This is, I would say, not a rocket science area. We allow you simply to post any articles related to your company progress or your fundraising. This is, again, to build this excitement, to keep everybody up to date and involved. What is the biggest value is that whenever you post a news item, it automatically distributes and notifies everybody who's connected or invited to your company page, so that you don't have to, again, go to this email ping pong but you rather have everything in one place and digitally handled. You can also plug in your Twitter or Facebook accounts to display those posts automatically, again, saving you more time. But moving into the back stage, where it's, of course, I think most interesting intel on what is happening with your, and when you manage also your fundraising campaigns. So here you can see all the invites that are pending. You can see, okay, did they, was it only sent? Was it actually even, did they view it, but they haven't accepted it? Again, giving you information you currently would not have, sending invites through email. You can see other investors inviting their fellow investors, which need your approval, but again, you're in control where your pitch deck lands in the end, or your proposal. And then you see that there are also other third parties that invited somebody, and we even have this mysterious anonymous invite. That's actually not a bug, that's a feature, because when speaking with investors and companies, we realize there's a third party, and this is all the middlemen and the partners sitting, being in the middle of the investors and the company. That can be brokers, investment banks, family offices, any kind of middleman that has quite an extensive investor network and does deal sourcing for that investors. So what you can do is plug in any partners, and once you set them to premium or standard rights, you can also allow them, you give them the right to invite anybody in a fully disclosed way or in an anonymous way. This is to protect the identity of high net worth individuals that are allowed to still scan your proposal, and if they're interested, they can then push the button to de-anonymize themselves and proceed towards investment in your company. But that I'm happy to then explore or elaborate on the partner functionality later on. Important is, of course, all the active, those that accepted your invite. You can easily see, okay, is it an individual or is it a team? You can add any private notes from your meetings. You can see if they gave you any feedback directly through Pepicon. You can add easily any tags or labels so that you can categorize them in your own way. You can see, of course, who invited them, but also how well you match. And then on the activity statistics, you can see, okay, how much time are they spending reviewing my proposal? When were they last seen? How many visits did they have? And this is, again, crucial in prioritizing and constantly reprioritizing your investor hit list. Who do you speak with? Who do you have lunch with? And who has true interest in your company and who is just interested but is never going to make a decision. So you can also see those not interested, if they provided feedback, why not, to implement that or do some tweaks. We also ask companies if they want to be exposed to our own investor ecosystem and community. So of course, those, again, we ask you and we ask the investors if they want to be visible, and if they want to be visible to anybody or those where their investment preferences are matched. So you can potentially be exposed to more investors and pitch directly through Pepicon to them. You see more on the conversion statistics, how well you're performing. And then, of course, you also see on the investments, but we're going to look into that into the fundraising module. What I wanted to just show you quickly is when you're ready, when you complete your proposal in Pepicon, then is the time to invite the investors from the hit list you created. You can do that through email invitation directly through Pepicon. We have templates that you can work with, or you can even choose one of your previous messages. Again, we don't want you to do that repetitive manual work. You can also generate a personal link for a person to share through WhatsApp, LinkedIn, and so on. Or we have the option to get a public link. So this is a link that you can activate, and then you can use it in your social media broader campaigns. Or, for example, if you're pitching to investors at a specific event, I know there is the investor summit on the 1st of November. While you do, or while during your pitch or afterwards, you can always generate this public link to send to investors so that when you have them warmed up during that pitch that they can directly go to preview more information about you and request full access so that you have them connected to your company page in Pepicon. So this is really of value that a lot of our clients are using in pitching events or also for broader public social media campaigns. Then, of course, messaging, again, not a rocket science. You can communicate, send a bulk message to a specific role, to a specific, to all invited, all who didn't, who invested, and so on. But important is the fundraising module. This is where you manage a round. Now we have a round open, so I'm just going to show you looking at editing around. Again, all the flexibility is there. You can name the round, choose the currency, how much money you're raising. As I mentioned, here is where you work and probe interest of the investors with working with a pre-money evaluation range. Here you can select which instruments you want to offer. What's the unit per price, investment, the minimum ticket size, and then also you need to have the memorandum up to 100%. Even if some sections are excluded, you can decide. We have all the digital subscription and legal document signing, so you can upload your shareholder subscription agreements, have them signed through a digital signature part of the digital subscriptions. And again, add any other investor instructions to inform the investors what's going to happen with when is allocation happening, how is this happening with payment, because we don't handle any payments inside of Pepicon. We're purely a technology company providing you with the digital process from pitching to fundraise. Then we, of course, have I think also just not to forget the access rights. As boring as they are, they're important because here's where you manage all of your contacts. You can easily add numerous admins to co-create that content. You can easily add as many roles as you want to cluster your contacts into specific groups. The memorandum, you can again decide which ones is visible to which role if you want to put the NDA in place. And then you, of course, also manage on the same access rights for your documents if you want to make specific files confidential or see all the signed non-disclosure agreements here. Last but not least, we have quite an extensive resource and support provided to companies, from best practice fundraising support and guidance. We also do a lot of investment memorandum reviews. We also try to look for investor lists and sources. We provide companies with some country specifics, even though, of course, we don't cover all the countries yet. And also work with some experts and work with third parties to provide more templates and so on. But just being cautious with time, I just want to pause here and see if there are any questions from anybody so far in the chat.
We have a question from Renee.
Oh, I see. How many investors are on your platform? What type were they from? So we have at the moment around 850 investors registered. Those are a mix in individual investors. We also work with accelerators and corporate finance firms. We're also in discussion with a few banks. So the mix is there. We are a Swedish company. I'm not sure if I mentioned that already. So our majority is still fairly Swedish based, but we're looking at some European collaborations and looking at a more European market in the next few years. So we believe that's gonna be the mix for the foreseeable future. Hopefully that.
We also had a question from Renee saying if you could name some insights with the main differences between investor types, like such as business angels, VCs, or strategic investors?
Oof, that's I think that we would need another 1 hour plus session just to cover that. So I would say just being cautious with the time. It's of course there's a massive difference looking at the what already I mentioned. If you want passive or active involvement, what can the investor bring beyond just money? Of course, everybody's speaking about the smart money coming more from the angel side that don't have such high demands and scrutiny and processes as VCs. With VCs, usually, again, there's not every VC is 100% alike, but with VCs, there's a lot of usually more pressure on reporting and doing it their way and giving up the control. So again, it depends on your type of business. It depends on how much money you're raising, what business you're in, and what investors you already have on board, and what would fit in your particular investor mix. So it's happy to have a follow-up specifically with you, Rene, on those topics. But of course, also happy to share more. The pros and cons are fairly available online. But of course, again, I would consider always not just to read those general pros and cons, but think about what does it mean for your business. Here we go, Elisa. To access our data, the investors need to be registered on the platform. Who pays for the platform, the investors or the startup, or both? Very good question. So just to go up here, the investors need to be registered for one main reason, and is that to give you control of who is accessing your information, and because a lot of our clients are very clear about their IP and business idea, and even that's why still quite a few of them use the NDA and or locking, restricting some of the memorandum sections. So it's again, we believe if you use the public link, you can give them a preview where they don't need to have any kind of registration, and that preview contains the main page I showed you with the highlights and the profile page, but it doesn't unlock neither the memorandum, file vault, or news. So they need to request full access to get that. So we believe that peek into your company details should be sufficient to say, okay, we're interested, and then to make an account, because again, we believe you want to be in control of your company data and where does it end. Who pays for the platform? So we have, as I mentioned, we believe fundraising is the responsibility of the companies. So as we also believe we can accompany the company throughout the journey. So it's the company that pays, and we have packages, basic and more all-inclusive package that we currently offer. And we have also special deals for very, very early or university-backed startups. Investors are currently for free, even though we have some functionality for investment teams that are at a price. And again, why is company paying is because we believe not only that it's your responsibility, but that then it makes you neutral and you're in control of your fundraising, rather than being dictated, being restricted by one application by one specific investor only. Jörg, the digital process you showed, Lily. Oh, you're very welcome. For the legally binding, that's a very good question. So in Sweden, there is a bank ID where it's absolutely legally binding, where the KYC happens directly through the digital signature. It's still legally binding. If you sign a contract these days with DocuSign, we use a very similar solution integrated, of course, into our solution. So it is legally binding. Both the NDA signing, which is encrypted base signing, or the document signing. I have to say that some of our clients prefer to still do the signing, to do document signing out of the tool, which is absolutely okay, mainly if We had one company doing really more of a trade sale, and then there's a bit of back and forth. There is not one shareholders agreement to be signed by everybody. So it can also be done not only through the tool, but it can be done out of the tool also. Okay, any other questions?
Do you offer any support during the process? Because what you showed now in the tool is like how to structure the thing, but in the presentation it's more like how to strategically help somebody fund money. Do you as Pepicon offer this or?
Absolutely. So as mentioned, we have the whole memorandum guide, which is plugged in. We have the help area where companies can or clients can get 24-hour support with the basic kind of I would say more support, but then we also have the best practice area that looks into those 3 areas of investment readiness, fundraising management, and shareholders engagement. What we do is also provide this one free investment memorandum review for specific tips for your company, and we also host twice a month group fundraising group coaching call, where actually our maximum 7 of our clients are present at the same time, asking any specific questions related to their fundraising, if pre, during, or post stage. And also that's where usually we discuss if there is any investor that we would suggest they approach. But again, we need to be very clear, we're not a corporate finance firm, we're a technology company. We're like Salesforce, but for fundraising. So even though we try to provide investor lists and we provide access to our own investor community, I personally believe it's more of an add-on. And again, I would not like us to be seen as a corporate finance firm providing investor sourcing as the main offering.
Looking at geography, how many percentage or what's the percentage of investors coming out of Switzerland on your platform? It's like 5% or 10 or?
Oh, I would not commit to saying any number because I haven't checked that before. I would say definitely not a massive amount of at the moment, but we're just having a few larger, not individual investors, but more institutional investor conversations and angel club and VC conversations going on at the moment.
Thank you.
Welcome. But at the moment, we're also in discussion with European-based investor networks. So our vision is to also facilitate more of cross-border investment rather than to promote Swiss for Swiss or Swedish for Swedish only. Wonderful. Just cautious about time. Let me just go back to the presentation. So I think just to slowly conclude, if any takeaways to take away from this session is really, I would like you to think about making sure that your company is fundable and investable 24/7. My mouse doesn't work. And that means to be ready 24/7 to close or engage into a conversation about any equity-related transaction. If it's an M&A deal, which might pop up, that's also okay. Nurturing qualified investors and probing their interest early is super crucial. Qualifying, okay, who is really worth your time, because time is the scarcest resource we have, and who is a good fit continuously. It's work with the fear of missing out. If you provide a professional, complete pitch, they will think, okay, they're ready, and I'm scared. I'm not gonna get a seat in that round. So provoke that fear of missing out. It works very well. And again, stay flexible. Always think about different avenues to get growth or external financing, potentially not looking only into equity, but looking into convertibles or strategic partnerships and so on. And of course, again, to be able to grab any opportunities on the fly as they pop up. Because we have had this very fast and furious session, so of course, please feel free to go to our website, check out more. What I would like to offer specifically for the Kickstarters is to drop me an email by Friday if you would be interested in a more detailed demo or discussion related to your personal fundraising journey. We would be very happy to then do a quick raffle and award one of the companies with a completely free license, and also to offer those that are interested for the upcoming Investor Summit that is held on the 1st of November. If you would like to already set up your Pepicon profile and use that public link to give to investors during and after your pitch, we'll be very happy to also accommodate that. So please don't hesitate to contact me. I'll be sending Regina the slides afterwards, so you can return to anything that I discussed briefly. And of course, as mentioned, we'll be very happy to just have a conversation afterwards, or connect through LinkedIn or email, and to be in touch. So yes, I think we're on time. I'm very, it's very, as you see, I live in Switzerland for way too long, for almost 10 years in a few months. So I think I'm becoming very Swiss in timekeeping. But again, let me actually stop sharing so I can see the people. Okay, wonderful. Thank you again for the organization, to Regina, to Katka, to Jörg, and the whole Kickstart team, and of course for everybody for joining today. And as mentioned, please reach out with any questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you.